spare child." Rebecca said it like it was nothing right as my phone buzzed in my hand. At first I thought it was just another bank alert. Then I saw it. "Your beneficiary information has been updated. I hadn't touched my account. Not once." My chest tightened as I opened the details. A pending transfer, a large one, and the new beneficiary, Olivia Smith. I looked up at her. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look confused. She just took a sip of wine like everything was normal. That's when I realized this wasn't a glitch. It had already been happening. If you're watching this from outside the US, tell me where you're from and what time it is for you right now. And if you've ever felt like the extra in your own family, stay with me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop open, the glow from the screen washing everything in a dull, sterile blue. The kind of light that makes time feel suspended. I kept refreshing my bank account like it might correct itself if I watched it closely enough. It didn't. The beneficiary was still Olivia Smith. The pending transfer was still there, time-stamped for processing at 9 a.m. I clicked into the account settings, something I hadn't done in months, maybe longer. I'm a financial analyst. I spend all day reviewing other people's accounts, flagging irregularities, spotting patterns. But my own finances, I'd always kept them simple, clean, secure. Or at least I thought I had. The first thing I noticed was the recovery email. It wasn't mine. I stared at it for a long second, thinking maybe I'd just forgotten an old account. But no. I recognized the domain immediately. It belonged to Rebecca's freelance branding business. My stomach dropped. I checked the phone number next. Also not mine. I leaned back slowly, trying to slow my breathing. This wasn't just one change. This was layered, intentional. Whoever had done this hadn't rushed. They had built access. I clicked through the activity log. There it was, small changes spaced out over months. An email update in September. A phone number adjustment in October. A new device login in early November. Each one subtle. Each one easy to miss unless you were looking for it. I hadn't been looking. Because why would I? It's not like I shared passwords. I don't reuse credentials. I have two-factor authentication on everything. I teach junior analysts how to avoid exactly this kind of breach. And yet here it was inside my own account. I forced myself to go back further. August. That was when things started. I sat up a little straighter. August was when my parents asked for help refinancing their house. I could see it clearly now, the phone call from my mom. Her voice soft, almost embarrassed. "We just need someone more organized to help us look over the numbers." That's how she framed it. Not a loan, not a handout. Just help. I had agreed without hesitation. I always did. I reviewed their paperwork, helped them compare rates, even logged into a few portals for them when they couldn't figure something out. At one point, my dad had asked me to just set up the account access so it's easier next time. I remembered handing over my laptop at the kitchen table, walking him through a login, then stepping away to take a call. I came back and everything looked normal. At least I thought it did. I scrolled back to the device history again. There was a device ID I didn't recognize, but the location tag was clear. My parents' house. I closed my eyes for a moment. No, that didn't automatically mean anything. Devices can get mislabeled. IP addresses can be off. I knew that. I worked with this stuff every day. But the timing, the pattern, it lined up too neatly. I opened the pending transfer details again this time, reading every line slowly. Amount $48,200. Destination external account. Authorization verified. My fingers hovered over the screen. Verified how I clicked into the authorization logs. Two-factor authentication had been used, except not mine. The code had been sent to the updated phone number, the one I didn't recognize, which meant whoever had access had control, complete control. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic exactly, not yet. Clarity. This wasn't a random breach. It wasn't some hacker scraping accounts. This was targeted, and it had taken time. I reached for my phone and opened my contacts. Rebecca. I stared at her name for a few seconds, then locked the screen. Calling her now wouldn't get me anything. Not answers. Not truth. Just more deflection. Instead, I opened my email and searched for any notifications from the bank. There were a few. One about account updates, another about security preferences. I had skimmed them when they came in, maybe even opened them between meetings, but I hadn't clicked through. I hadn't verified. Because nothing in my life had ever suggested I needed to watch my own family this closely. I leaned forward again, my pulse picking up slightly. There was one more tab I hadn't checked. Linked accounts. I clicked. It took a second to load. Then 2 entries appeared. My primary checking account, and another one. RS Holdings, LLC. I blinked. That wasn't mine. I clicked into it. The connection had been established in October. Authorized user Olivia Smith. My name. My authorization. Except I had never heard of RS Holdings, LLC in my life. I stared at the screen, trying to piece it together. RS Rebecca Smith. It was almost too obvious, but the structure, the way it had been set up, it wasn't careless. It wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. Which meant this hadn't started with that dinner, or that comment. It had started months ago. I checked the transfer history between my account and the LLC. There were small amounts, hundreds, sometimes 1,000, spread out, irregular. Nothing that would trigger a standard fraud alert. Nothing that would stand out unless you were looking for a pattern. I felt a slow, controlled anger settle in, not explosive, not loud, just precise. Because now I understood something I hadn't before. They hadn't taken everything, not yet. They had been testing, building access, preparing for something bigger. And that pending transfer, that was the first real move. I glanced at the time. 2:17 a.m., less than 7 hours before it processed. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind already moving ahead. I couldn't fix everything tonight, but I could stop that transfer. And once I did, I was going to find out exactly how far this went. My phone lit up again, buzzing softly against the nightstand. I looked down. A new notification. Not from the bank this time. From my mother. Can you come by tomorrow? We need to talk. It's important. I stared at the message, then at the time it was sent. 2:14 a.m. 3 minutes ago. I hadn't told anyone what I'd found. Not yet. Which meant one thing. They already knew I was looking. I was standing outside the bank before it opened. Chicago mornings in December have a way of making everything feel sharper than it is. The cold cuts through your coat, your thoughts, your excuses. By the time the doors unlocked at 9 a.m., I already knew I wasn't walking in as a confused customer. I was walking in as someone who had been compromised. "Good morning," the teller said, polite routine. "I need to speak with someone about unauthorized changes to my account." I replied just as calmly. There's a tone people recognize in that sentence. It bypasses small talk. Within minutes, I was sitting across from a man named Mark in a glass-walled office. "Tell me what you're seeing." he said. I slid my phone across the desk and showed him the beneficiary change, the pending transfer, the linked LLC. His expression shifted not dramatically, but enough. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's pull up your full access log." He turned his monitor slightly so I could see. Rows of entries, dates, timestamps, device IDs, authorization types. I watched his cursor move. "There's a limited power of attorney attached to your account," he said. My stomach tightened. "There shouldn't be." "It was added in October." October, right after the device change, right after the new phone number. "Who requested it?" I asked. Mark clicked into the document. "Rebecca Smith." He paused, then added, "listed as emergency contact." Of course she was. I had added her years ago, back when that felt like a responsible thing to do, back when family still meant default trust. "Show me the document." He opened it. A scanned form appeared, clean, formatted, properly submitted. My name at the top. Rebecca's name listed under authorized access. And at the bottom, my signature, or something that looked like it. I leaned closer. At first glance, it was convincing. Same flow. Same slant. Even the small curl at the end of my last name. But it wasn't right. There was a hesitation in the line. A stiffness that didn't belong to how I actually sign anything. "That's not mine," I said quietly. Mark didn't argue. "We'll need to verify that through a formal dispute process. How did this get approved?" He clicked into the submission details. "It was uploaded through your online portal, verified with two-factor authentication." I already knew what that meant. The code had gone to the updated phone number, the one that wasn't mine. "Can you see what device it came from?" He scrolled again, then tapped the screen lightly. "There's a registered device ID tied to this submission, whose..." He hesitated just long enough that I knew the answer mattered. "It's listed under Daniel Smith." My father. The room didn't spin. I didn't feel dizzy. It was worse than that. Everything went still. "Is that normal?" I asked, even though I knew it wasn't. "It can happen if someone logs in from a previously trusted device," Mark said carefully, "if credentials were shared at any point." I thought back to August, my dad at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of him, me stepping away for a call, a small, almost invisible moment. That was all it took. "Can you stop the transfer?" I asked. Mark nodded. "We can place an immediate hold, but we need to act now. Do it." He turned back to his screen, typing quickly. "Okay," he said after a moment. "The pending transfer is now frozen. It won't process at 9 o'clock. I exhaled slowly for the first time since the night before. "That doesn't reverse what's already been moved," he added. "I know, because now I could see it clearly. The smaller transfers, the testing, the gradual build-up. This wasn't a one-time decision. It was a system." "Next step," Mark continued, "is filing a formal fraud claim. That includes disputing the power of attorney and any linked accounts, and the LLC." He clicked into the connection. RS Holdings. LLC was authorized as an external account in October. Authorized by who? He looked at me. "By your login." Of course. Everything traced back to me. On paper, this wasn't theft. It was consent. Manufactured, layered, and verified through systems designed to trust documentation over intuition. "Can I get a copy of everything?" I asked. "Absolutely." He printed out the documents, authorization forms, access logs, timestamps. Physical proof of something I already understood, but couldn't yet prove outside this room. As he handed them to me, he added, "I'd recommend speaking with a legal professional as well." "I plan to. I gathered the papers, stacking them neatly like organizing them could somehow organize what I was feeling. It didn't. But it gave me something to hold. As I stood to leave, Mark hesitated. "One more thing," he said. I paused. The initial request to add Rebecca's access, it wasn't flagged because it came through an emergency contact escalation. What does that mean? It means the system prioritized the request. Faster processing, fewer verification delays, because it was family, because I had said she could be trusted. I nodded once, then walked out into the cold. My phone buzzed again as I reached the sidewalk. Another message from my mother. "Please come by today. Your father is worried." Worried. That word landed differently now. I looked down at the stack of documents in my hands, then back at the message. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about what I had found. And for the first time since this started, I realized something else. This wasn't just Rebecca. She couldn't have done all of this alone. I didn't go to my parents' house. Not yet. Instead, I drove home, locked my door, and spread everything out across my dining table like I was building a case instead of trying to understand my own family. Because at that point, that's what it was. A case. The documents from the bank sat in neat stacks, access logs, authorization forms, timestamps. I took photos of everything, backed them up to a secure drive, then emailed copies to myself from a secondary account I never used for anything personal. Habit? Control. The only things I could rely on right now. Then I called Lena. She picked up on the second ring. "You don't usually call before noon on a weekday unless something's wrong." "Something's wrong," I said. There was a pause. How bad I looked down at the paperwork, then at the screenshot on my laptop of the fake power of attorney. "My sister is listed as the beneficiary on my account," I said. "And there's a power of attorney I didn't sign." Another pause. Longer this time. "Send me everything," Lena said, her voice shifting into that calm, methodical tone I'd heard 100 times when she was dealing with something serious. I did. Every file, every screenshot, every note I'd taken since the night before. She called me back 20 minutes later. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to walk you through what I'm seeing, and I need you to stay with me. I'm here." "That signature," she continued. "It's not forged in the traditional sense." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means it wasn't drawn from scratch. It was likely generated from an existing digital sample." My grip tightened slightly on the phone. "Like, copied." "More like reconstructed," she said. "If someone had access to a high-resolution version of your signature, say, from a previous document, they could overlay, adjust, and recreate something that passes automated verification." I thought about all the documents I'd signed over the years. Lease agreements, loan paperwork, even things I'd helped my parents with. Would that pass a bank system, I asked? "If it's combined with correct login credentials and two-factor authentication," she said. "Yes." I closed my eyes briefly. So this wasn't sloppy. "No," Lena said. "This was careful." She paused, then added, "There's something else." I sat down slowly. The metadata on the file, she continued. "It shows the document was created from a device that had previously accessed your account legitimately." I saw that, I said. "It's registered under my dad's name, right?" she said. "Which means whoever created this didn't hack anything. They used trusted access." Trusted. That word again. "But here's the part that concerns me more," she continued. "The timing." "October," I said. "Exactly," she replied. "That's not random. That's right after your income increased, right?" I hesitated. "Yeah." My promotion had gone through at the end of September. Salary adjustment bonus structure, updated financial disclosures. It was all documented. It was all visible if someone knew where to look. They didn't just take advantage of access, Lena said quietly. They timed it. A slow, controlled anger settled deeper in my chest. Keep going, I said. RS Holdings L. LC, she continued. I ran a quick check. It's registered to Rebecca. Same address as her apartment. I figured. But it gets more interesting, she added. The formation date is mid-October, about 2 weeks after your promotion became public record in your company filings. I let that sink in. 2 weeks. That wasn't desperation. That was planning. They built a structure to receive money from you, Lena said. Legally enough to avoid immediate flags, but controlled entirely by her. And my parents? I asked. There was a brief silence. I can't prove their involvement yet, she said carefully. But the device connection, and the fact that your emergency contact was used to escalate access, it suggests at least some level of awareness. Awareness. Not necessarily intent, but not innocence either. I stood up and started pacing slowly across the room. So what's the play, I asked. Right now, Lena said, you document everything. You don't confront them again without leverage. And you protect yourself legally. I already froze the transfer. Good, she said. Next step is securing your account's completely new credentials, new authentication methods. Remove all linked access. I'll do that today. And Olivia, she added. Yeah, you need to be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better. I stopped pacing. What do you mean, if they know you've started looking into this? She said, her voice steady. They might try to accelerate whatever they were planning. My eyes moved back to the laptop screen, to the linked accounts, to the transaction history, to the patterns I had only just started to see. They already have, I said quietly. There was a pause on the line. What did you find? Lena asked. I walked back to the table and opened the transaction log again, this time filtering by external transfers. They didn't just link the LLC, I said. They've been moving money into it. Small amounts, spread out. How much? I swallowed. Enough that it didn't trigger alerts, I said. But enough that it adds up. Over how long since October? Another pause. Okay, Lena said slowly. That's not incidental. That's a pattern of extraction. Extraction. That word hit differently than transfer, because it implied something ongoing, systematic. And there's something else, I added. What I clicked into a different tab, the one I hadn't fully processed yet. There's a loan application, I said. Under my name. Lena didn't respond immediately. How big? She asked finally. 6 figures, I said. Silence. They were about to move from testing to leverage, she said. Leverage. If that loan goes through, she explained, they're not just taking your money. They're using your credit to fund whatever they've set up. I felt my jaw tighten. And if I hadn't noticed, you'd be responsible for the debt, she said simply. I exhaled slowly. There it was, the real plan. Not just siphoning, not just access. Control. They were building something using my name, my income, my stability, and I wouldn't have known until it was too late. My phone buzzed again on the table. Another message from my mother. We're all here, please come. We need to clear this up before things get out of hand. Before things get out of hand. I looked at the screen for a long second, then set the phone down without responding. Because for the first time, I understood something clearly. Things were already out of hand, and the only reason they were reaching out now was because I had just stopped them from finishing. I didn't respond to my mom's message right away. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing exactly what Lena told me to do, locking everything down. New passwords, not variations, completely new structures, a new authentication app tied only to a secondary device I kept offline. Recovery options wiped clean and replaced with accounts no one in my family even knew existed. It was methodical, clinical, the same way I would handle a compromised client. Except this time, the breach wasn't coming from outside. By early evening, I had one more thing to do. I drove to my parents' house. The lights were already on when I pulled up. Too many lights. Kitchen, living room, even the hallway lamp by the stairs. It felt staged, like they wanted everything visible. Open. Normal. I sat in the car for a moment, then grabbed the folder of printed documents from the passenger seat. I wasn't coming in to argue. I was coming in to observe. My mom opened the door before I even knocked. "Olivia," she said, relief rushing into her voice. "Thank God. Come in." Her eyes flicked briefly to the folder in my hand. So she knew. Or at least suspected. Inside, my dad was standing near the dining table. Rebecca was already seated, legs crossed, scrolling on her phone like this was just another family evening. No one looked surprised. That was the first confirmation. "You said you wanted to talk," I said, setting my bag down but keeping the folder in my hand. My dad nodded. "We just don't want this to turn into something unnecessary." Unnecessary. I almost smiled. "What exactly is this?" I asked. A brief silence settled over the room. My mom stepped in quickly. "We think there's been some kind of misunderstanding with your account. Is that what you think?" I asked, my voice even. Rebecca didn't look up from her phone. "You always overreact to stuff like this, Liv." There it was again. That tone. Dismissive. Casual. Like I was the problem for noticing. I walked over to the table and placed the folder down in front of them, sliding out the first page. "Then help me understand," I said. "Because from what I can see, my account has a beneficiary. I didn't assign a power of attorney. I didn't sign, and a pending 6-figure loan I didn't apply for." That got Rebecca's attention. Her phone lowered slowly. My dad's jaw tightened just slightly. My mom's hands came together like she was about to pray. "I didn't sign any of this," I continued, "but somehow it's all tied to me." Another silence, heavier this time. My dad was the first to speak. "Olivia," he said carefully, "sometimes these things are more complicated than they look." I held his gaze. "Then explain it to me." He hesitated. "Not long. Just enough." "We were trying to organize things," he said. "Organize what?" "The family's finances," he replied. The word family landed like a soft justification. I didn't react. Using my name, I asked. "It wasn't like that," my mom said quickly. "You thought what I cut in gently, not raising my voice. That it would be easier," she said. "You have the best credit. The most stable income." There it was. Not denial, not confusion. Rationalization. I turned to Rebecca. "And you?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossing. "I set up the LLC. That's not illegal. Did I authorize it?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Did I sign anything?" I continued. A small shrug. "You've signed plenty of things before." That wasn't an answer. "That's not what I asked." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "We're trying to build something," she said. "Something that actually benefits all of us." "With my money?" I asked. "With your position," she corrected. "You're the one who made it out. The least you can do is be used." I finished for her. My mom flinched. "That's not fair," she said softly. "No?" I asked. I slid another document across the table. The transaction history. Small amounts. Cleanly spaced. Easy to overlook until you saw them all together. Rebecca's eyes flicked over it then away. "That's just transfers," she said. "We were going to explain when I asked." No answer. My dad stepped in again. "We didn't think it would hurt you," he said. I looked at him. "You didn't think I repeated?" "We were careful," he added. "Careful." That word settled into place with everything else. The timing, the structure, the planning. "You weren't careful," I said quietly. "You were deliberate." Another silence. This one stretched, because now we were past the point where they could pretend this was accidental. "This isn't stealing," my mom said suddenly, her voice breaking slightly. "It's family. We help each other." I felt something shift inside me at that. Not anger. Not exactly. Clarity. "Helping requires consent," I said. "You didn't ask. We knew you'd say no." Rebecca snapped. There it was. The truth. Raw and unfiltered. "So you decided that meant yes, I asked." She didn't respond. My dad rubbed his forehead, tension finally showing. "Olivia, he said we can fix this. We'll reverse everything. Just don't escalate it." Escalate. Another word choice. Another signal. "You mean don't report it," I said. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I looked at each of them in turn. My mom anxious pleading. My dad controlled calculating. Rebecca defensive but not surprised. They had expected resistance. They just hadn't expected evidence. "I already froze the transfer," I said. Rebecca's head snapped up. "What?" "And I'm in the process of disputing the authorization," I added. "That's not necessary," my mom said quickly. "It is," I replied. Rebecca leaned forward now, her tone sharpening. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" she said. "If you flag this, everything we've built." "Everything you built on my name," I interrupted. She stopped. For just a second. That was all I needed. Because in that pause, she confirmed it. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't borrowing. It was a system. And they were already invested in it. My phone buzzed on the table between us. A new notification. I glanced down. Email. From my bank. Subject line: loan application status update. I opened it. Read it once. Then again, and felt the last piece click into place. I looked up slowly. They didn't just approve the application I said. No one spoke. They fast-tracked it. Rebecca's face drained of color, because she understood what that meant. The timeline had just changed, and whatever they thought they still had time to fix, they didn't. No one spoke for a few seconds after I said it. They fast-tracked it. That sentence didn't land like an accusation. It landed like a deadline. Rebecca was the first to move. "Show me," she said, reaching for my phone. I pulled it back slightly. "No." Her hand froze midair. "Read it," she said, sharper now. "I already did," I replied. "It's approved. Pending final disbursement." My dad's shoulders dropped just a fraction. Not relief. Not panic. Calculation. "How long?" he asked. 48 hours, I said. "Unless I stop it." My mom sat down slowly like her legs had given out. Oh my God. But the tone didn't match the words. It wasn't shock. It was fear. Rebecca leaned back again, but this time her composure was thinner. "Okay," she said. "Then we fix it." I watched her carefully. "How I asked." "We move the funds," she said quickly. "Close the loop before it triggers anything. You reverse the flags you already put in, and we restructure it properly." I let that sit in the air for a second. "You want me to undo the fraud report I said?" "It's not fraud," she snapped. "It's internal." Internal. Like that changed anything. "Becca," my dad said quietly, but she kept going. "You don't understand how this works," she said, turning back to me. "If the bank sees this as fraud, it's not just a reversal. It's an investigation. Accounts get frozen. Credit gets flagged. Everyone gets pulled in. Everyone I asked." She didn't answer, because now we were getting closer to the part they hadn't said out loud yet. I picked up the folder again and slid another page toward her. The LLC filings Lena had pulled. "You registered RS Holdings 2 weeks after my promotion," I said. "You linked it to my account in October. You started moving money in small amounts. And now there's a 6-figure loan tied to my name." I tapped the paper once. "That's not internal," I said. "That's a structure." My dad exhaled slowly. "It was supposed to be temporary," he said. I looked at him. "Temporary what leverage?" he admitted. There it was. Out loud, my mom shook her head slightly. "We weren't going to hurt you," she said. "We just needed time to get things off the ground." "With my credit," I said. "With your stability," she corrected softly. "Same thing. Different wording." I turned back to Rebecca. "And what happens when the loan hits?" I asked. She hesitated. "Just long enough. We invest it," she said. "We scale. We pay it back before it ever touches your record long term. And if it doesn't work, it will," she said immediately. That wasn't confidence. That was deflection. "And if it doesn't," I repeated. Silence. Because now we were at the part they hadn't planned for. Failure. "If it doesn't," I said slowly, "I'm left with the debt." No one argued. No one corrected me. That was the second confirmation. The first was the system. The second was the risk. And both of them pointed in the same direction. This was never about helping me. It was about using me. I sat down across from them, finally, letting the weight of it settle not as emotion, but as fact. "You didn't think I'd notice," I said. Rebecca didn't respond. "You thought you had time," I added. Still nothing. My dad looked at the table. My mom looked at me. "We were going to tell you," she said quietly, when I asked. No answer, because there wasn't one. My phone buzzed again. Another email. This time I didn't even need to open it to know it mattered. The subject line was enough. Disbursement scheduled. I showed it to them. Rebecca leaned forward now, urgency replacing everything else. "Okay, listen to me," she said. "We can still control this. You just need to delay whatever you filed this morning. Give us a day. That's it." "A day for what?" "To move things around," she said. "To protect you." I almost laughed. "Protect me from what you set up?" I asked. "From the fallout," she snapped. There it was again. Not concern, containment. I leaned back slightly, watching all of them. 3 people, 3 different reactions. My mom pleading, my dad strategic, Rebecca urgent, and all of them orbiting the same thing. Not me, the structure, the plan. "What else is connected to my name?" I asked. Rebecca hesitated. My dad answered instead. Just the LLC and the loan, he said. Just. I held his gaze for a long second. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop, opened it, turned it toward them. Then explain this, I said. On the screen was the account linkage panel, not just RS Holdings. Another entry, one I hadn't mentioned yet, because I hadn't been sure what it meant until now. A second external account, different name, different entity, but the same authorization path, the same pattern. Rebecca's eyes widened. Where did you get that? She asked. I didn't answer, because her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't told them, not all of it, which meant this wasn't just a family plan. It was her plan, and they were only part of it. My dad looked between the screen and Rebecca, confusion breaking through for the first time. What is that? He asked. Rebecca didn't answer. My mom's voice came out softer now. Becca. Still nothing. I closed the laptop slowly, because now the situation had changed. This wasn't just about what they had done to me, it was about what Rebecca hadn't told them. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't the only one in the room who didn't know the full story. No one moved, not right away. The air in the room shifted in a way I hadn't expected, not toward me, but toward Rebecca. My dad looked at her first. What is that? He repeated slower this time. Rebecca didn't answer. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on me sharp, calculating like she was trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. That was enough. Because silence in a moment like that isn't neutral. It's confirmation. Becca. My mom said softly, her voice tightening. What is she talking about? Still nothing. I leaned forward slightly, resting my hands on the table. There's another account linked to mine, I said. Different entity, same authorization trail, same pattern. I let the words settle. And based on your reaction, I added, looking directly at Rebecca, I'm guessing that one isn't something you told them about. My dad's expression changed. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. What account? He asked. Rebecca finally spoke. It's nothing, she said quickly. It's not even active. Then explain it, I said. It's just, she started, then stopped, because there wasn't a clean version of this, not one that would hold up. My dad pushed his chair back slightly, the legs scraping against the floor. Rebecca, he said more firmly now. She exhaled, annoyed. It's a backup structure, she said. That's it. For what I asked. In case we needed to reroute funds, she said like it was obvious. I repeated. She hesitated again. Just a fraction too long. That was all it took. You mean, you... I said. My mom's head turned toward her slowly. Becca. Is that true? Rebecca rolled her eyes, but there was tension under it now. Look, I didn't think it mattered, she said. It's just another account, under whose name I asked. She didn't answer. Rebecca, my dad said, his voice sharper now, whose name? She finally looked at him. Not Olivia's, she said. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Then whose? I pressed. Another pause. Then reluctantly, a partner. The word landed heavier than I expected. What partner? My dad asked. Rebecca leaned back again, but the control was slipping now. Someone I've been working with, she said. On the business side. You mean the business you built using Olivia's credit? I asked. It's not like that, she snapped. It looks exactly like that. My mom's voice came in quieter but more urgent now. Becca, you said this was just between us. I didn't think it was relevant, she said, to what my dad asked, to the part where we're all now involved in something that could be fraud. There it was, the word no one had said out loud until now. Fraud. Rebecca flinched slightly but recovered quickly. It's not fraud if it works, she said. I stared at her. That's not how that works. It is if no one loses, she shot back. I let that sit for a second. Then I asked the only question that mattered. And if someone does? She didn't answer, because she already had. I turned my laptop back toward me and pulled up the details on the second account. There are incoming transfers scheduled here too, I said. Smaller. Staggered. Rebecca's eyes flicked to the screen. You weren't just planning one move, I continued. You were setting up multiple exits. My dad stood up fully now. Is that true? He asked. Rebecca didn't respond. That was answer enough. My mom covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. But this time it wasn't controlled. It was real. You said this was for the family, she whispered. It is, Rebecca said quickly. You just what? My dad cut in. Built a second structure we didn't know about. In case things went wrong, she said. Silence. Because now everyone understood what that meant. If things went wrong, she had a way out. Not for all of us. For herself. I leaned back slowly, watching it unfold. This wasn't the confrontation I had planned. But it was better. Because I didn't have to prove anything anymore. They were doing it for me. You were going to move the money, I said quietly, and if it collapsed, I'd be the one left holding it. That's not, she started. It is, I said, cutting her off for the first time. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Everything is tied to my name, I continued. My account, my credit, my authorization. The only thing that isn't is your backup plan. Rebecca's jaw tightened. That was just precaution, she said, for who I asked. She didn't answer. My dad looked at her like he didn't recognize her. You told us this was controlled, he said. It is, she insisted. We just hit a timing issue. That's all. A timing issue, I repeated. I picked up my phone and opened the email again. Disbursement in 48 hours, I said. Funds already allocated. Secondary transfers scheduled. I looked at all of them. That's not timing, I said. That's execution. Another silence. Longer this time. Heavier, because now there was no version of this that could be softened. No wording that could make it sound like anything other than what it was. A plan. Built over months. Using me. I stood up slowly, gathering my things. Olivia, my mom said quickly, panic creeping into her voice. Now we can fix this. I paused, but didn't turn around. No, I said. You can't. We can reverse it, my dad added. We just need time. You already had time. I said that was the truth they couldn't argue with, because this hadn't happened overnight. It had taken months, and in all that time, they had never chosen to tell me. I turned back to them finally. There's a lawyer involved now, I said, and the bank has already flagged the activity. Rebecca's head snapped up. You didn't, she said. I did. Her expression changed. Not to anger, to fear, real fear, because she understood what came next. If you push this, she said, her voice lower now, you're not just hurting me. I met her eyes. "I know," I said. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel uncertain about what I was going to do next. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about stopping something that should have never started. My phone buzzed again as I reached the door. Another notification. Different sender. My lawyer. I opened it, read the first line, and felt everything shift into place. Preliminary review confirms potential identity misuse and financial liability exposure. I looked back at my family one last time. They were watching me now, not with control, not with certainty, but with something they hadn't shown before, uncertainty. Because now, this wasn't just a family situation anymore. It was a legal one. I didn't go back inside. I sat in my car with the engine off, the cold pressing in from every direction, and read the rest of the email from my lawyer twice. Immediate action recommended to limit liability exposure. Do not engage in further informal agreements. That line stayed with me. Not don't escalate, not try to resolve privately, just stop engaging. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes for a second. Because that was the part no one really talks about. When you realize the people who raised you made a decision that put you at risk, and now the only way to protect yourself is to step outside of everything you were taught about loyalty. My phone rang. Rebecca. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, then a third time. I answered on the fourth. What I said. Her voice came in tight controlled, but there was something underneath it now, pressure. "You need to come back inside," she said. "We're not done." "We are," I replied. "No, we're not," she snapped. "You don't get to just walk away and drop a legal bomb on us." I almost smiled at that. "A legal bomb?" I repeated. "You mean documentation?" "You know exactly what I mean," she said. "Yeah," I said. "I do." There was a pause. Then she shifted tone. Softer. More familiar. "Liv?" "Listen," she said. "We can fix this. I've already talked to someone. There are ways to restructure everything so it doesn't come back on you." I looked out through the windshield at nothing in particular. "You mean hide it better?" I asked. "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Silence. Then, "You're overreacting," she said sharper again. "Nothing's even happened yet. The money hasn't moved. The loan hasn't hit your account." "Exactly," I said. "That means we still have control," she pressed. "No," I replied. "It means I caught it in time." Another pause. Longer this time. "You think you're better than us?" she said finally. I let that sit for a second, because that wasn't about the money. That was something older, something deeper. "I think I'm responsible for myself," I said. "That's it. That's always been your problem," she said. "You separate yourself. You act like you're not part of this family." I exhaled slowly. "Being part of a family doesn't mean giving up control over my own finances," I said. "You benefited from this family your whole life," she shot back. "And I paid for it," I replied. "Just not like this." There was a shift in her breathing, a subtle one, the kind that happens when someone realizes the argument they've been using doesn't work anymore. "You're going to ruin everything," she said quietly. "No," I said. "I'm stopping it." "Do you even hear yourself?" she said. "You're choosing a bank over your own family." That landed exactly the way she intended. I could feel it, but it didn't move me the way it used to. "I'm choosing boundaries," I said. "You just don't like where they are." Another silence. Then, "If you go through with this, she said, her voice dropping. Mom and Dad are going to get pulled into it. You know that, right? There it was. The real pressure. Not money, not structure. Consequence. I know, I said. And you're okay with that? I didn't answer right away because the honest answer wasn't simple. No, I wasn't okay with it, but I was also no longer willing to absorb it. They made choices, I said finally. So did you. And so are you, she said. Yeah, I replied. I am. Another pause. Then she tried one last angle. If you just give me 24 hours, she said softer now, almost careful I can unwind most of it. Quietly. No reports, no investigations. I thought about that. Not because I was tempted, but because I wanted to understand what she was offering. You've had months, I said. Why now? She didn't answer. Because she knew. Because I had already stopped the transfer. Because the system was no longer under her control. You're not trying to fix it, I said. You're trying to contain it. That's the same thing, she said. No, I replied. It's not. I looked down at my phone at her name on the screen and felt something settle in me. Not anger, not hurt. Distance. I'm not undoing anything I said. Her tone shifted instantly. You don't understand what you're doing, she said. Once this starts, you can't control how far it goes. I'm not trying to control it, I said. I'm stepping out of it. That's not how this works, she snapped. It is for me. Silence. Then fine, she said. Do what you want. And she hung up. I sat there for a few seconds, phone still in my hand. Then I opened the lawyer's email again, scrolled down to the next section. Recommended immediate actions: freeze all accounts, remove unauthorized access file, formal identity misuse report, and cease direct negotiation with involved parties. Cease direct negotiation. I locked my phone and set it down, because that part was done. I started the car, pulled away from the curb, and drove home without looking back. By the time I walked into my apartment, another email had come through. From the bank. Subject line: fraud investigation initiated. I opened it. Read it once. Then set my phone down on the counter. Because there it was. The point of no return. Not dramatic, not loud. Just official. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was ahead of it. The investigation didn't feel dramatic. There were no sirens, no one showing up at my door, no sudden confrontation that made everything explode at once. It was quieter than that, more procedural, more final. 2 days after I filed the report, I sat in a small office at my bank. Again, same building, different room this time. A compliance officer joined Mark, her presence shifting the tone immediately. Olivia, she said, introducing herself as Karen. We're going to walk through a few things with you. This is standard when identity misuse is suspected. Standard. I nodded. Okay. She didn't waste time. We've reviewed the account activity, the authorization documents, and the linked entities, she said. Based on what we see so far, there are strong indicators that access was obtained through previously trusted credentials rather than external breach. I understand, I said. That part didn't surprise me anymore. What matters now, she continued, is establishing what you authorized and what you did not. She slid a document across the table. A timeline, clean, structured. Every login, every change, every transfer mapped out. I leaned forward slightly. It was all there. August initial shared access during refinance support. September income update recorded. October external account linked. Power of attorney submitted. November incremental transfers. December loan application initiated. It looked almost professional. Like a strategy deck. That's everything I asked. For now, she said. There may be more as we continue reviewing. I nodded slowly. And the transfer I asked. Permanently blocked, Mark said. It won't go through. A small part of me relaxed. Not fully, but enough. And the loan, Karen glanced at her screen. It's been flagged, she said, given the dispute disbursement is on hold pending investigation. I exhaled quietly. That was the second thing that mattered, because without that loan, the entire structure they built stalled. What happens next? I asked. Karen folded her hands on the table. We proceed with a formal investigation. That may include requesting statements from involved parties, reviewing associated accounts, and depending on findings referring the case for further action. Further action. I knew what that meant. Will my family be contacted? I asked. Yes, she said, if their names appear in the authorization chain. They did. We all knew they did. I nodded once. Okay. There was a pause. Then Karen added, I want to be clear about something. You acted quickly. That prevented significant financial exposure. I met her eyes. How significant? I asked. She didn't hesitate. 6 figures, she said. The number sat there for a second. Heavy. Real. That's what was at risk, I asked. That's what we can confirm at this stage, she replied. I leaned back slightly because hearing it out loud made it different. Not abstract. Not theoretical. Real. You did the right thing, Mark added quietly. I nodded but didn't respond. Because doing the right thing didn't feel like a win. It felt like a line I couldn't step back across. The next few weeks moved in layers. Calls, emails, documentation requests. I answered everything. Carefully, precisely. The same way I would for any client. Only this time, every answer pulled another thread through something personal. Rebecca was contacted first. I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from my mom. She's talking to someone. She said over the phone, her voice tight. A lawyer, I think. I expected that, I replied. You didn't have to do it like this, she said. There it was again. Not you shouldn't have done it. Just not like this. How should I have done it? I asked. Silence. Then softer. We could have worked it out. I closed my eyes briefly. You had months to tell me, I said. You didn't. That doesn't mean. It means something. I cut in gently but firmly. Another silence. I didn't know everything, she said finally. I believe you, I replied. And I did, but belief didn't undo impact. Your father didn't either, she added quickly. That's not what the records show, I said. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. The device logs, the access points, the timing, it all pointed in one direction. Not full control, but involvement. Are you going to press charges? She asked. The question hung between us. I thought about it. Not in anger, not in revenge, in consequence. I'm following the process, I said. I'm not controlling the outcome. That's the same thing she whispered. No, I said. It's not. Because I wasn't deciding anything anymore. I had stepped out of it, just like I said I would. Rebecca didn't call again. Not after that night. But I heard things. Through my mom. Through small updates that slipped through conversations. She was negotiating. Trying to minimize exposure. positioning it as a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, a family arrangement that got out of hand. I wasn't surprised. That was her strength. Reframing. But this time, there were records, and records don't shift. One afternoon, about a month in, I got the call from Karen. "We've completed the preliminary phase," she said. I sat down slowly at my kitchen table. "Okay, the loan has been fully canceled," she continued. "No funds were dispersed. Your credit will not reflect this activity." Relief came in a quiet wave. Controlled, measured. "Thank you," I said. "The external transfers to the LLC are being reviewed," she added. "Some may be recoverable. Some. Not all." I understood that. "And the authorization documents," I asked. "Deemed invalid," she said, "based on your statement and supporting analysis." "Invalid." One word, but it changed everything, because it separated me from what had been done. Officially. And the rest I asked. There was a brief pause. "The case has been referred for further review," she said. "That may involve additional steps outside the bank." I nodded slowly. Understood. We both knew what that meant, but neither of us said it out loud. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time staring at nothing, not thinking, just sitting, because this was the part no one prepares you for. Not the discovery, not the confrontation, the aftermath, when everything is technically resolved, but nothing feels the same. My phone buzzed softly on the table. A message. From Rebecca. The first one in weeks. I stared at her name for a moment before opening it. 3 words. That wasn't necessary. I read it once, then again. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel the need to respond, because there was nothing left to explain. Nothing left to defend. Just distance, and clarity, and the understanding that some lines once crossed don't get redrawn. Thing fell apart, but as the moment I finally saw what had been there all along, and chose not to ignore it. After everything, I don't think the lesson is about money. It's about access. Who you give it to, why you give it, and what happens when it's taken instead of offered. A lot of us are raised to believe that family automatically earns trust, that helping is the same as giving permission, that keeping the peace is more important than protecting yourself. But they're not the same. And sometimes the most difficult thing you can do is recognize the difference. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're choosing conflict. It means you're choosing clarity. And clarity doesn't always feel good in the moment. It can cost you relationships, comfort, the version of family you thought you had. But it also protects something just as important: your stability, your identity, your right to decide what belongs to you. Forgiveness, if it happens, doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. It doesn't restore access. It doesn't erase consequences. It just means you're no longer carrying the weight of it. If you've ever been in a position where someone close to you crossed a line, especially one that involved trust, money, or control, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for stepping back. If this story resonated with you, I'd really like to hear your perspective. How would you have handled it? Where would you draw the line? And if you want to hear more stories like this about boundaries, quiet decisions, and what happens after you can follow along. This is a fictional story created for entertainment, education, and reflection.